So you want to take your skill challenges to the next level? This is a follow-up video to my skill challenge video, link right here. This video is going to be an epic example along with a roll-by-roll breakdown of one of my subscribers that ran a skill challenge in his Curse of Strahd game. Coming up. The children have been taken by werewolves. Raxian, the Dragonborn Paladin, Ugon, the Turtle Cleric, and Wilhelm, the Human Ranger, have their mission. The party hunts down the werewolf's den and waits for them to leave out on a hunt. With most of the pack gone, they easily sweep in, save the children, and rush back to the village. They try and cover their tracks as best they can, but they know it's just a matter of time before the werewolves return and hunt them down. The village has sturdy walls, but a small population, and no weapons capable of harming these lycanthropes. Time is limited, but they have a plan, and they quickly get to work preparing for the assault. Let the skill challenge begin. Round 1, preparation. The cleric goes around the village asking the townsfolk to scrounge up any silver they could possibly spare. Candlesticks, jewelry, anything. They want that silver. With such a meager amount of silver from this poor town, there's just not enough. The players throw in every silver coin they have to make up that difference and continue with their plan. Now it's time for that paladin blacksmith to get to work. He gathers any competent smith in the village and they melt down that silver into arrowheads and spearheads to equip the townsfolk with. This is a grueling task to accomplish in such a short time, but it could be done. With all hands on deck, they're able to make dozens of arrowheads and enough spears to equip the town's guard with. Not enough for a prolonged battle, but just maybe enough to hold them off. The ranger follows suit and tries to spend his time turning those arrowheads into full-fledged arrows. And with this weaponized silver now crafted and distributed, this village is as ready as it's ever going to be. Round 2, the assault. With the sun now set, only a quiet tensions in the air. The village alarm sounds and the werewolves amass along the tree line, emerging from the dark, misty woods. The snarling growl sounds like a rumbling thunder. A howl pierces the night, followed by another and another. The wolven army charges the village walls. The night is pitch black and the mostly human guards and archers are at a huge disadvantage to these nocturnal intruders. The cleric wants to use their light cantrip on all the arrows to light up the battlefield. They clutch their holy symbol and reach out to their deity. Their eyes flare open with a heavenly glow. They outstretch their hands and illuminate dozens of arrows, lighting up the night sky. The ranger looks across the battlefield, now flooded with light, and commands the archers on the wall, calling shots. But despite their best efforts, they're getting overrun, and the werewolves make it to the wall and start crawling their way up. The only way to have a fighting chance is to keep the werewolves at the wall. If the werewolves make it inside the village, then all is lost, and the only option left would be to go to the haunted abbey in the mountains. The paladin looks out at the village, things looking grim, guards cowering in fear. He unsheaths and activates his sun sword and holds it high like a beacon of dawn atop the wall. He starts the countercharge for the final stand to hold them back. He becomes a literal beacon of hope, hacking and slashing through the beasts. The guards see this and start to overcome those primal fears. They charge in with silver-tipped spears in their white-knuckled hands. Round 3, the final stand. The battle has reached that moment, that critical moment where the heroes walk the line between victory and defeat. They look to each other for who should act next. The Dragonborn steps up. He lets out a primal roar and breathes fire into the air, challenging the werewolves trying to intimidate them and further inspire his allies. With the flames from his mouth and the light from his sword, the werewolves' resolve is shaken. The ranger and cleric come alongside him with his civilian militia and they stand as one. With a united battle cry and a now blinding light, the werewolves retreat back into the forest, tail between their legs. The rallying cries of cheers now echo through these deserted streets of these simple villagers who were lifted up to fight for their homes, their families, and their lives, now saved by these 3 heroes. This was a skill challenge put in the comments of my original skill challenge video. Like I said, I want to start including you guys more in these videos. He's a subscriber of mine named Andre, and he also goes by False Zero. Comments like this literally make my day and is why I do this. He said, "Hey Dungeon Coach, I'm glad to have found this channel. Your videos on skill challenge was a real eye-opener. I used a skill challenge last night in my Curse of Strahd game and it was a huge success." It sure sounded like it. I contacted Andre in my Discord server and he gave me the entire play-by-play. So once that original video got 100 likes, I made this follow-up video. And this is how bonus videos work on this channel. So now, not only am I going to go through each role and talk about what good things there are to learn from, I'm also going to go over 5 different rule variants to customize skill challenges to the way you want to run them. So let's go. For round 1, I love how Andre broke this up into 2 different phases. I've done a ton of different things with skill challenges that I can talk about in other videos, but I've never done this. Round 1 was a preparation before the wolves came, and round 2, they arrived. If you didn't notice from the story I just told, this DC was lower than all the others. This is when the cleric asked the village for silver. Andre said it was such a creative idea and they had just saved the children, he wanted to lower that DC from 15 down to 12. Time out! This is where rule variant number 1 comes in, static versus dynamic DCs. Normally a DC is a static number that does not change, but if a creative enough idea gets thrown out there, I've been known to lower a DC by a few points, usually about 3. And it does make sense when these creative ideas tie into the story and the things that just happened. I'll also throw in number 2 here, known versus secret DCs. Do you let your players know right off the bat what the DC of this skill challenge is? Or do you wait for them to figure out what number succeeds and fails on the fly, like they would a monster's armor class? I definitely use both methods here based on the feel of what's happening. I have a whole video I want to make on this known versus secret DC because it happens all the time at my table. So I'll say it is a little bit easier on the DM not to say the DC and allows for some wiggle room behind the scenes. But in general, I do tend to tell my players what that DC is, so as soon as that dice hit the table, they know if they succeeded or not. Back to the story now. That first super creative check of silver collecting was a fail, and the punishment was the player's loss of money. Whenever somebody fails a roll in D&D, it doesn't always literally mean that thing didn't happen. Maybe things took a little longer, some damage was taken, or resources lost. So they still got enough silver to come up with this awesome plan, but they had to supply it. Then we have a blacksmithing check to melt down and craft these things. Now I don't know how long it takes to fully melt and forge a weapon, but I don't care because this is cool. And they're preparing right now anyway, so he's got time. For me, this is such a cinematic view with these smiths coming together along with the paladin, pounding away at this silver to make these quick and dirty weapons. And I think this was a creative decision on the DM's part to ask for a Constitution blacksmithing tools check. This is not a test of raw strength, dexterity, or intelligence. This is an endurance test. You gotta go. For the third roll, the ranger described that he wanted to fletch the arrows. Now in D&D, there's not a skill for arrow fletching. So again, a great call was made by Andre to make an arrow fletching check on the fly. This was just a simple dexterity plus proficiency because it would make sense that the ranger would be proficient at doing this. And as a side note, props to these 3 players. I love how they follow each other up and this all ties together so beautifully. Round 2, timeout. Rule variant 3, initiative. This is whether or not you roll for initiative at the beginning of a skill challenge. Me personally, I don't. I feel like this high intensity skill challenge is too fluid to put an order on. This story is a perfect example of that. Because like I said, these players are fluidly playing off each other. They're doing what makes sense in the moment, and that doesn't always happen in an exact order. So how I do it is once everybody goes, the round's over and we reset. Top of round 2, the werewolves attack. And this next roll is my favorite roll of all. So sick. A spellcasting check pushing the limits of a cantrip. After this huge village saving moment of this cantrip use, I'd give that cleric's light cantrip a small permanent boost. Maybe it does have a range of 60 feet, or it can light up multiple objects equal to their wisdom modifier. And these huge story moments are exactly what I use to let my players expand the power of their characters in unique and customized ways. I have an entire homebrew system I did a video on, link right here, of bonus level up methods to give these type of customizations to your characters. So massive props to Ugon the Total Cleric for this epic moment. The next roll was a perception check by the ranger, which was a creative use of knowing what skills he was good at and trying to use them in the skill challenge. Time out! Rule number 4, don't ask for a check. This really isn't a variant, but I'm putting it here anyway. I don't let my players ask for checks. This is a default thing that I do in or out of a skill challenge. I want my players to be immersed in the world, not looking at a piece of paper asking for a certain check. Instead, they should describe in detail what their character does. And then based on that description, I ask them for a check. You might have to train your players to do this, but this is great for immersion, and they just do their thing and you ask them for checks. So I'm challenging you players out there to not do this. Oh, my athletics is really high. I want to do an athletics check to climb a wall. Instead, I want to run over to the wall and try and find handholds to pull myself up. Okay, make an athletics check. Something like that. And as a little bonus tip here, something else I've done for my druids, clerics, or wizards is give them a nature, religion, or arcana check as an option too. So you have a lot to choose from here between an attack roll, a spell check, or a skill check. And don't forget about those tool checks. The next check here was an attack roll, which can be a really big go-to, especially in these combat-themed skill challenges. Make sure your players don't overuse them, but it's definitely a good option. Timeout! How does this work? Am I out of timeouts now? Last one, number 5, no repeat success checks. This one's simple. Once a success is gained from a certain skill check, it is now off limits for the rest of the challenge. You can make it harder on your players' creativity if you add this rule. I personally don't tend to use this rule, but it does promote varied gameplay. Ultimately, skill challenges usually don't go any longer than 3 rounds, so it shouldn't be a huge problem. Alright, the final critical roll. This is another example of where no initiative is really cool. The players know that next roll is the deciding factor, so who's going to step up and make it? The intimidation decision was beautiful and it fit the narrative perfectly. The tides of battle were turning and this was the breakthrough. So make sure that player has a super awesome moment, but don't leave the other players out to the one person that triggers the final success. So even though the paladin was the last one who succeeded on the last 2 rolls, make sure you also describe it as a group effort. Unless one player failed everything and got a nat 1, then leave them out. So this whole thing was awesome to hear from a viewer of mine that they learned about these skill challenges from my videos and then put it to their game. And this was a great skill challenge by the DM and the players. So if you guys want more content on these skill challenges, then do what you did last time. Like the video, share it with your friends, and leave a comment down below on what you did. I have tons more on this topic, including more rule variants, examples from my own campaign, and methods you can implement to prevent the skill challenge from falling apart. And a big thank you to my 3 new Patreon supporters, Drew Willis, Alan Lundgren, and Mark M. And that was perfect timing because I just started a Patreon only giveaway. And the prize is very similar to this video. The winner gets to entirely pick a topic and guest star in a video. And for every 10 additional patrons, I'm gonna pick a bonus winner. So I'm excited to see who all wins. I have a ton of rewards for y'all to check out, and I got a new film room they'll be moving into soon, so I put everything right back into the channel. I love hearing from you guys, and I appreciate all the comments and support. So until next time, stay creative and think outside that box. Peace.